Okay, so on today's show, I have Wanda with me, and Wanda has a Black Women Travel podcast. Hi, Wanda.
Yes. Hi. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
having me on the podcast. Yeah. My podcast is called Black Women Travel, and I interview all kinds of women, women with families, solo women travelers, all Black, all fabulous. So yeah, they just talk to me about their travel experience. Um, as a Black woman, they talk to me about the journey that they had to take in order to get there in the first place, allowing themselves to be able to travel. So it's been really cool.
And how long have you been doing this podcast for?
I started doing interviews in June this year, 2019, and I got a few of them together so that I could release them regularly every Sunday by 9 a.m. Eastern. So yeah, technically I started it in July. So I started talking to the women in June.
Oh, awesome, awesome. And I guess what has your experience been with doing this podcast? What have you been getting out of it that you might not have necessarily thought you were going to when you first started?
I had the idea for this, I don't know, maybe last year, but I was just like, how am I going to do this remotely? And never my brain could make up in order to not make me do it. So once I figured it out, like, it has been the biggest gift to me. I've been, the last place I was living was Atlanta, Georgia, and I was there for maybe like 10, 11 years. I've been on the road for about almost 4 years now, and it has been a bit isolating not having community. And so I tried a few different ways to create that community. I had a mastermind, and we would have virtual calls every week. I also a group on Facebook, Black Women Digital Nomad Entrepreneurs. But the group wasn't very active, and what this podcast gave me was it allowed me to connect with women who value the same things that I value. Not all of the women are specifically entrepreneurs, but they navigated the world, whether that's within their jobs or their own ventures, in a way that makes me feel close to them. And that's the biggest gift that it's given me. Just being able to, because I love asking questions. Like, like I'm not a small talker generally, So it's like, oh, like, okay, so what were your fears as a child, and like what kind of trauma did you have to get through in order to be who you are today? So this podcast is like right up my alley. I'm able to ask the kind of questions that I'm naturally curious about anyway, and give women a platform, give Black women a platform to share what it is that they're going through and have gone through.
That's I love that. For me, I kind of like started this podcast Blackpacking, wanting to like just tell my stories and experience. And I kind of had like originally I was like, oh, I'll bring people on every once in a while and interview them. And then after I did the first interview, I was like, oh, I'll talk about myself a little bit, but I really want to create that space to talk to other people, more so than just like me talking, like sharing my experience into a microphone. I wanted to actually like have these conversations with other people that have experienced the same things that I have, and the same kind of like-mindedness of like, this traveling thing is definitely like a part of my life and is continuously redefining like who I am. through all of those experiences and places and people that I meet.
That's it. Yes, that's exactly what it does. And it's dope to be able to be in conversation. And it's kind of like in constant conversation because the things that they say kind of like, for me personally, like, they bounce around in my head, especially like when I'm editing or thinking about ways to promote the episodes. Like, I really internalize a lot of the things they say, and they're just so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like Onika the Traveler or some other of the larger names names who are Black women travelers. Like, these are just like, not to dull their shine, but they're just like regular ass Black women. Like,
Yeah.
like they're amazing and they're brilliant and they're doing really, really dope things as well. But they are literally just like women who everybody doesn't know about yet.
What's one of your like favorite episodes or someone that really stood out to you?
You know, I love all of my children.
I know. I wanted to ask you that question, but I knew asking it, that was like asking someone like, who's your favorite artist or what's your favorite movie, you know? Because like, you know, I'm sure all of the people that you interview and all of those stories are your favorite for their own particular reason, you know?
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like, I can't compare. Like,
yeah.
They all say something. All of them. I've recorded, I don't know, like 14 or 15 episodes. Some of them haven't aired yet. And I just find something so dope. What I love about all of them is that a lot of these people are strangers, complete strangers. Some of them I have met. Some of them have been in my Facebook group. But a lot of them I just stumbled on the internet, and I invited them to talk to a stranger, and they didn't ask a whole lot of questions. And we're able to have such a rapport just in conversation because we're both willing to be vulnerable and open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I love most about each and every one of them. They give such a gorgeous piece of themselves.
Yeah, like I was telling you earlier, how sometimes these episodes end up going like a little bit longer. I'm just starting now to interview strangers, and you know, I'm asking people, hey, like, do you want to come on the show? And surprisingly, like, no questions asked. People are like, yeah, like, I would love to. And I think, I wasn't expecting that type of response or feedback. I was expecting like a little bit of like hesitation from people. But what I realized is that, you know, the Black community and like the Black travel community, like, they want to talk about, you know, their experience. You know, we all have like our own stories individually, and travelers like sometimes I only feel like I can relate to people that have traveled and experience things like overseas. And it's nice having people wanting to like share their experience with me without, you know, knowing too much about the show.
Yeah, because like nobody asked me questions about myself. Like, when you invited me on the show, I didn't ask you too many questions about like, oh, well, are you qualified, and like, have you studied podcastisms, or you know, like, I was like, oh, cool, like, another traveler, I would love to talk to her. Yeah. So I guess like that's just, yeah,
it's different. I try and like tell some of my friends, I'm like, it's not like a different life, but just like if you haven't done it, like I don't know how to explain it to you. I can't explain like that feeling. It's hard to like, you know, just like have conversations with you about like, oh, this happened to me, or, you know, I went through this, if you haven't like put yourself in that situation as well. So
absolutely, there is something very specific about the things that we go through. So it's like trying to explain to someone what the color blue tastes like.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm still trying to explain it to
I can't tell you
people.
what Malaysia is like. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I keep doing this podcast and hoping I get better at trying to explain my point, or like trying to understand someone else's point too at the same time. One thing you were saying earlier, I am kind of looking forward to, I feel like you and I are both building this community, which I really like. And, as we both continue to do these episodes and like meet with people, I'm like really hoping for myself, like later on down the line, that I can connect with these people in maybe some random place, or, I have them as like a contact. If I go somewhere that I know they've been, I can ask them, hey, so like, what'd you think about this place, or where should I go? And that's really nice to have, because like, my immediate friend group, I don't have like, that travel community. And so now I feel like I'm building one through this podcast, and by talking with more people, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is that there are all kinds of travelers. So depending on who you ask, you're going to get such different answers for everywhere around the world. I think that's a part of our history as well, particularly as Black Americans, knowing where it's safe to travel, knowing the safe places to go. There's the Green Book that used to exist.
Yes.
And so now, like, we are each other's green books, essentially. Like, but even with that said, like, it depends on the person, too. Mileage varies for everyone. Your kind of Black, your kind of energy, maybe you'll have a totally different experience than someone else. So I like that some people are still open-minded about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's also like good to know.
This was my experience. It wasn't for me, but you should definitely go and see if it is for you.
Yeah.
Sometimes the cost of living is too hard to turn away from too.
Mm-hmm. Malaysia, that's your spot.
Yeah, that's where I base out of usually.
Yeah.
I spent the last 2 years in Asia, and I've spent the most time. Was it 3 years? I think it's 3 years in Asia, and Malaysia has occupied quite a bit of that time.
What are your thoughts overall? I'm assuming you like it.
Malaysia is a lot like the States in some ways. So the population here, you have Malay, you have Indian, and you have Chinese, and they do not mix, like not even schools. And there's quite a bit of racial tension that nobody ever really talks about. But as someone who's experienced it, like, it's easy for me to see it. And the way that they kind of talk about things. For example, being a Muslim country, they are trying to introduce mandatory Arabic into the schools. And the Chinese are just like not with that.
Wow.
But like, this is the country that they live in. A lot of the Chinese were born here, of course, but it's only been, I think, well, I don't want to say, but I think it may just be a couple generations. But it could be longer than that. But yeah, so it's really interesting to see the ways that things work here based on race. People live separately. Like I said, they go to school separately. There's a holiday every other day because they celebrate everything.
Is it our type of holidays where things are like shut down, like no school?
Yeah, but it's not our type of holidays because we got like, what, 5, 6?
Yeah.
there's literally something to celebrate every single month because there are so many different cultures here. The food is dope. The food is so dope. You always think of like Thai food or like, I don't know, some other type of food, Korean food. I've never heard anyone be like, "Oh, let's go to a Malaysian restaurant."
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah. What does that mean? What is I guess what are some examples of things that you like there?
So, but it depends on the culture because again, things are so separate. So, I get Indian food, I get Chinese food, and I get Malay food. All of it is vegetarian because I'm that way. But
Same.
for example, the Chinese, they'll do like the mock meats, and like they'll do like a duck, like a, what's it called, sweet and sour duck kind of,
Okay.
as a mock meat, which is so delicious. And then they have like different vegetables, and it's all like really seasoned well. Um, and of course rice. First of all, Asia, so carbs are every motherfucking where, like literally. Indian, you got thosai, which is like really thin. How it's like a crepe. It's like a stuffed crepe, if you know what a crepe is.
Yes.
Or like injera, the Ethiopian bread.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not spongy like injera, but it's thin and like very foldable like injera, so it's like stuffed. Of course, samosas, which are like 3 cents each.
I love that.
It's so good. And then for Malay food, they have. Well, I just learned that it's actually Indian Muslim, but it's called a nasi kandar. So you go through a line and they load you up. Nasi is rice. So load you up with some rice, and then they have like 15 different sauces, and they do it with like chicken or fish, but like in several different sauces and curries. Traditional Malay food seems to be for vegetarian, like tempeh or tofu,
Mm-hmm.
and a really yummy like coconut sauce. And like Thailand is known for a mango salad. They do, or is it mango? Yeah, I think it's mango. They also do a mango salad. Indonesian food is very similar to traditional Malay food as well. They do that a lot too, the tempeh tofu and like a fresh mango papaya salad, something, something.
Yeah.
But yeah, and fish. They do a lot of fish, although it's expensive, and I'm not sure why.
Really, because they're
Ocean.
yeah, they're right there on the yeah, they're right there on the coast. What are some of your favorite things to do there?
I am not a great tourist. You won't find pictures of me in front of famous places. That's just like not how I get down. I like talking to people, and I like eating. So you will see food pictures, and you might see some pictures of me with people. What I do with them, like couch surfing, is a really dope way for you to meet local people, not necessarily to stay with them. I don't know if you know anything about couch surfing, but it's like a
Oh yeah.
international website of travelers. Okay, so in Malaysia and also in a lot of these other countries, the groups are popping. So they have like weekly events where they just get together and hang out. So like I would go to that or just find interesting people. I'm a gatherer, so like I'll be like, hey, you want to go do this? You want to go do this? And like get people together to go do stuff. Go to the movies. I love going to the movies out here. Meeting with people just to have like tea and talk. Yeah, I don't know. Eat.
Yeah. It all goes back to
Dang.
eating.
There's nothing like going to a bar here and have Nuck If You Buck come on. True story, the song My Neck, My Back, first of all, it came on and a lot of the locals knew the song, but they were getting the words wrong. So it's like same, but very different. It's stuff like that. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm not in America.
That is hilarious. I like that. I like picture that in my mind, like all the different possibilities.
In Vietnam, like I had one of the people from the group. First of all, if you put a trip out on couch surfing, a lot of times people will contact you ahead of time, and then like you get to meet with them. And like one of the people that I met helped me to find an apartment because like obviously he spoke Vietnamese and I did not at all. He was just like really nice. That's what I love about the couch surfing community is like they tend to be more helpful than not.
Yeah, that's awesome. He helped you find an apartment? That's so nice.
Yeah, he like came through and negotiated. I was like, okay.
Yeah. So where are you currently in the world?
So specifically in Malaysia, I am on an island. It's called Penang. So it's just off the coast of Malaysia.
Okay,
But that's where I am.
what's the weather like there right now?
Hot as hell. I feel like I'm in the sun's armpit daily. It is hot as hell all the time. I take showers just to cool off. It is hot as hell. Like, so hot.
And how long are you there until?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I bounce around a little bit and I leave and like go to a new place. I may stay just for like a few weeks and then I'll come back to Malaysia.
I see. How easy is it for you to like bounce around from like Malaysia to Vietnam and like Southeast Asia? Is it pretty easy to kind of navigate through?
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing about America is that passport that gets you everywhere you need to go. So you just buy a little flight and push off. Like it's really simple.
Yeah, and are flights pretty cheap or no?
I think flights in Europe are cheap. Flights out here surprisingly are not as cheap, but you can sometimes get like deals on some of the low cost carriers. Like Air Asia goes pretty much everywhere in Asia, and a lot of times they have sales. So sometimes I let the sales dictate where I'm going, and it's a really cool way to like go somewhere that I hadn't thought to go before.
What are your thoughts on the Black travel movement?
I have seen a lot of group travel stuff. I'm really excited about more people not waiting for others to take time off, to have the money, like to prioritize travel. So I'm really, really excited to see how it's going to continue to expand and grow.
Oh yeah,
I think that travel is a really dope way for people to break their patterns, and sometimes that's like an American pattern or a South African pattern, like whatever the pattern is of wherever you come from, and it just helps to clarify things a lot of times. I think that travel is a really dope way for people to spend time with themselves in a new environment, in a different place. I think it's really edifying, like in a personal development kind of way. So I'm so happy. I'm so happy that people are saying yes to themselves, to finding a way, to figuring out how to make it happen. Because that in and of itself is like, I think, growth. When you set a goal and you're able to actually like bring it to life, I think that is really what's the word? It like boosts your self-confidence. It boosts your self-esteem. Like, I can do this. I did this. I can do this again. I can figure out how to make this a lifestyle. Like, this doesn't just belong to non-Black people. This doesn't just belong to rich people. This doesn't just belong to a certain kind of privileged people. Because that American passport is a privilege, like, no doubt.
Yes, it is. I didn't realize it was until I started traveling, and either like being on a bus and it being stopped and people coming on and checking your documents. People are like, "Oh, you're American." Ooh. There was one situation where I was at the border of Ecuador and Colombia, entering Colombia, and they saw my American passport and let me skip the entire line at the border. And then that was
wow.
when I know, that's when it like kind of hit me, and the guard was like yelling to the other guard, and they're like, "She's from the United States," and like, in front of like all these people that are waiting in line.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh no, don't say that so loud. Like, thank you for letting me skip the line, but can you like keep that on the hush?" So, but
it's amazing though, because you never feel like in the States. I never felt any type of special at all.
No,
at all. But it's so interesting how the environment that we're in, and you come out of that and you see that you're not just your skin color. Other people don't operate like that. And it's just like, oh, well, where are you from? What's your religion? Are you married? These other questions that are so interesting. More self-love, not have your mind running 300 different programs trying to understand the world around you so that you can enjoy more of it. Because when your mind is bogged down trying to figure stuff out, like, you're not there. You're in your head. Just like, does this person like me? What does that mean? And like, well, okay, well, should I leave? Like, should I ask them? Like, it's just question, processing, and less experiencing, less being there, less taking up the space that you deserve to take up, showcasing yourself. Like you said, you started the podcast, but you're just like, oh, I want other people to tell their stories. But I mean, you have a lot of stories to tell yourself.
I do.
Or like stay out at a hostel because you don't necessarily want to be alone.
How do you feel that traveling has influenced who you are, or giving you like a better understanding of who you are?
I feel like traveling has helped me to see my own patterns, the bullshit I involve myself in and create and keep up and perpetuate and all that type of stuff, because we always think it's something. It's because I'm black. It's because Atlanta isn't ready for this or that. It's because whatever reasons / excuses we come up with that we may really think are true. Travel has helped me to get out of that, to understand you really do start where you are with what you have. And you keep at it, whatever that is. Whether you're trying to get in shape, whether you're trying to get your finances in shape, your relationships in shape, leaving is not the answer. And if you do choose to leave, like I said, you still take that person with you, so you have some habits to break. You have some growing to do. And I think that process like never really stops, because there's so much unlearning that we have to do. There's so much healing, and different things manifest in different ways. So a lot of times people stay in their comfort zones. Oh, I'm just going to go to Jamaica or the Bahamas or Mexico. That's comfortable. But they're not necessarily going to Europe. They're not necessarily going to Southeast Asia. They do, of course. But I'm just saying, some people, even with that, travel safe, or what they believe to be safe, because they want to be comfortable. They don't necessarily travel with the intent to challenge who they are as a person. They go for, a week or something like that, because capitalism, and money, yeah. Right? Because it can be very expensive if you're not familiar with ways to save when you travel. But anyway, that is what travel has done for me. It's helped me to take myself to the next level, and the next level, if life were levels, which they're not. But whatever.
Yeah. Do you feel like each place is kind of a learning lesson within itself?
Absolutely. Because the people are different everywhere you go. Every single country, even within the country, people are so different. And people are going to pull you in different kind of ways, with their kindness, with their ignorance, with their curiosity, with them just existing how they are. People are the energy of the place. Even the landscape is so different. All the mountains aren't the same. All the beaches aren't the same. These things pull on you in a different way. And in a different way at a different time. So if you go to the same exact place 5 years later, 3 months later, you are just, a lot of times if you're doing the work, you're a different person. You're experiencing it differently.
Have any goals for yourself while you travel? Do you set any kind of like goals or like things that you are like, I want to get this out of this trip? Or do you just kind of like let the world and the energy kind of dictate kind of what you're supposed to gain out of the trip?
It could be really easy. Long-term traveling is very different from vacationing. So long-term traveling becomes your new normal, and like it can be easy to get lost if you're not good with like time management and stuff like that.
Yeah. Or
if you get caught up in your feelings, like you could be in a depression nap for months. So yeah, it could be quite challenging. So goals help you to have something to move towards.
How have you made that work for yourself?
I was focusing on coaching, on one-to-one coaching, and that shifted to me coaching Asian kids, like teenager and younger, in person. The one-to-one coaching was online. And now that is shifting back to what I originally wanted to do which is to coach Black women, specifically life coaching. So next year my goal is to launch my first retreat. So that's what I want to do. I want to produce my podcast, and I want to do retreats to give people, like, interrupt that pattern, whatever flow they're in, or whatever is not flowing, and see what we could do. Because I love live environments. It's like a live music concert. Like, you just, like, lose your mind. The energy is so dope. You're there with people who value the same thing, which is, like, the artist, and you get to kind of work off that energy and relate, and, like, you're singing all the lyrics. So I really like that idea. And I've wanted to do retreats for some time, too.
Where are you thinking about holding this retreat?
I want to go everywhere. First, I'm thinking New Zealand.
New Zealand. Cool.
Mhm. I've also really enjoyed my time in Indonesia. I don't think Bali. I think a different part of Indonesia. I've spent quite a bit of time in West Sumatra. I'm not really sure yet about Indonesia. So far, those are my top two, like, in this part of the world. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for inviting me on and for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you. I like what you're doing. We're kind of doing similar things, so, I wanted to, kind of pick your brain and find out why you're doing what you're doing and how it's been going for you, and kind of find out a little bit more information about you. So I appreciate you coming onto the show. So
absolutely, my pleasure.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/blackpacking. There are over 100,000 titles you can choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I would personally check out Always on the Way by Stacey Adams. On the Way is travel stories of a semi-young Black woman and her life overseas while trying to maintain her sanity. Check it out on audible.com/blackpacking. Packing.